When you heard the news that Laura was pregnant, how did you react to that?
I was nervous but happy.
Why were you happy?
Because it was my daughter. I was going to be a dad.
Did you talk with Laura about how she felt?
Yes, I told her that.
Was Laura happy also?
Oh, she was really happy.
Did you and Laura intend to raise your child together?
Yes, of course.
Do you remember when you found out that your baby was going to be a girl?
No, but I was there when they did that. The sonogram. I was there. They said it was a girl.
Was that in the summer of 2016?
Yes.
When you found out that your baby was a girl, did you give a name to the baby?
Yes.
And what name did you give her?
Sophia Victoria.
And that was some months before she was actually born.
Yes.
Sometimes friends of women who are expecting a child give a baby shower. Did Laura have a baby shower?
Yes, they did a baby shower.
Okay. Did Laura receive gifts at that shower?
Yes. Many.
I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit number 23. Do you recognize that?
Yes, she showed me all of those.
And what is shown in that photograph?
A diaper bag and more presents.
That diaper bag was one of the things in your house on November 16th?
Yes.
You said Sophia was born on November 11th?
Yes.
Did you take some time off work?
Yes, almost a week.
So when did you return to work after Sophia was born?
On Wednesday.
Would that have been November 16th?
No, the 15th. No. She was born on November 11th. Friday, and I returned to work on Wednesday. I don't know what day that is. I believe it's the 15th, maybe the 16th.
Okay.
The 16th, I think.
So you returned to work. When you went to work, who stayed home?
It was Laura, the baby, and her mom.
And her mom's name?
Guadalupe Nogueda.
Did Guadalupe live with you and Laura?
Yes.
And then after November 11th with you and Laura and Sophia?
Yes.
What kind of work were you doing at the time?
Restaurant.
Any restaurant in particular?
Abuelos.
Do you still work there?
Yes, still.
What do you do there?
I'm in the kitchen. I work in the kitchen.
So you went back to work at Abuelos.
Yes.
Did you also go to work at Abuelos on November 17th of 2016?
Yes.
About what time did you leave for work?
It was like 7:20 perhaps,
And that's in the morning?
in the morning.
When you left for work on November 17th, who else was in the house?
It was Laura, the baby, and Mrs. Lupe.
Did you have any communication with Laura during the day on November 17th?
Yes, I texted her a bit.
Okay. Did she respond?
Yes, but after 1 o'clock she didn't respond anymore. 1:30, I don't remember.
What time did you get off work?
At about 3:25, 3:30, something like that.
And at that time, how many Abuelos were there in Wichita?
There are just two, one out east and one out west.
And which one did you work at?
The west side.
When you got off work on November 17th, where did you go?
I left work, I got in my truck and I went home.
Where did you live at the time?
In an apartment with Laura.
Was that at 215 North Brunswick
Yes. Yes.
in apartment number 1?
Yes.
I want you to think about the door to your apartment. Did it close properly?
Yes, it closed properly.
Did it require a key?
Yes.
When you arrived home, did you go to your apartment door?
Yes.
What did you see, if anything, about your apartment door?
That it was open like this a little bit, the door to the apartment.
And you're indicating maybe an inch or two?
Yes, a little bit, yes.
Was that unusual?
Yes, it's not normal. The door's always closed.
When you saw that the door was inched open, what did you do?
I opened and entered.
Mr. Gonzalez, I asked you earlier to watch a video clip, didn't I?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit number 2. Does that look like the clip I showed you?
Yes.
Was this video clip an accurate representation of what you saw when you went into your apartment?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, we've moved for the admission of State's Exhibit 2.
Mr. Starr, she will be admitted.
Maybe
You may show the jury.
Cuando más a ver si estaba la niña y salí corriendo.
Just to see if the child was there, and then I left running.
So you looked for Sophia?
Entonces usted la buscó en la Sophia.
Sí, pero no estaba.
Yes, but she was not there.
showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit 24. Tell us what that is, please.
Díganos, ¿qué es eso? Teléfono de Laura.
Laura's telephone.
When you saw that Sophia was not in the apartment, what did you do?
¿Qué hizo entonces?
Salí corriendo a pedir ayuda
I left running to ask for help.
con uno.
Did you find help?
¿Encontró ayuda?
Le toqué la puerta a una vecina
I knocked on a neighbor's door
y llamé al 911
and
también.
she called 911
Yo llamé al 911.
and I called 911.
Did you wait around for the police to arrive?
usted esperó que llegara la policía?
Yo estaba ahí hasta que llegara.
I was there until they arrived.
And did you cooperate in their investigation?
¿Y usted cooperó en su investigación?
Yo les contesté lo que me preguntaron.
I answered all of their questions.
There's a woman sitting next to me in a black and white top.
Una blusa
Do you know that person?
¿Usted conoce a esa persona?
Nunca la había visto.
I had never seen her.
La última vez cuando la miré fue la otra corte.
The last time I saw her was the other court.
But before seeing her in court, you had never seen her before.
Usted jamás la había visto.
Nunca.
Never.
Did you and Laura ever have a discussion about giving this woman, Sophia?
Darle a esta mujer, Sofía.
No, nunca.
No, never.
Did you give this person any
Dio a esta persona
permission to
permiso
take Sophia?
para llevarse a Sofía.
No, si yo no la conocía. Yo no sé nada de
No,
ella.
if I didn't know her, I don't know anything about her.
Did you give this person any permission
Esta
to
persona
take
cualquier
Sophia
aprueba para
to
llevarse a
Texas?
Sofía, Texas.
No.
No, never.
Would the record reflect the woman sitting to my right with a black and white top? That's a Yesenia Sesmas.
The record also reflects.
Thank you. If I could have 1 moment, please. Mr. Gonzalez, during the course of the investigation that followed, did you give law enforcement permission to get a sample of Sophia's blood from the hospital?
Sí. Sí, la
Yes,
firmé.
yes, I did.
And did you ever see Sophia again?
¿Y usted jamás volvió a ver a la Sofía?
Después de que me la trajeron de Texas,
After they brought her back from Texas.
So the police brought her back from
Entonces la
Texas?
policía se la trajo desde Texas.
sí.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Esto es lo que tengo. Gracias.
Mr. Smart, may I ask a question?
Smart cross-examination.
Would you tell us your name, sir?
Gary Jordan.
And what's your occupation?
Right now I'm retired from the Wichita Police Department,
How long were you a Wichita police officer?
31 years,
And when did you retire?
in November 16th of last year.
Of 2017.
Yes,
Ironically, I want to call your attention to November 16, 2016. Do you recall if you were working on that day?
yes, I was.
And what were your duties on that day?
Traffic officer
What part of town were you working
in the west side.
in? Did you receive a dispatch to go to 215 North Brunswick, apartment 1?
Yes, I did.
And what did the dispatcher tell you about that call?
They put out a call of a shooting that occurred at that address
What time did you receive that call?
at 3:26 p.m.
Do you recall about how far away you were when you got the call?
I was around the area of Central and Ridge at the time.
For those of us not familiar with Central and Ridge and Brunswick, about how far is that?
It's probably about a mile.
When you went to the Brunswick address, were there any other officers there when you arrived?
No,
You were the first one.
that's correct.
Tell us what you did when you arrived.
Well, when I arrived, when I got out of the vehicle, there was 3 Hispanic males that were directing me to the apartment. One of them mentioned that his wife is in the apartment, had been shot.
Did you have any kind of recording equipment on?
Yeah, I had an Axon camera.
And was it functioning at that time?
Yes.
I've asked you earlier to review the recording made by that camera, didn't I?
Yes.
Or actually, I think it was Mr. Roach that
Yeah.
gave it to you. Is it an accurate depiction of the first 5 minutes or so of your arrival at the 215 North Brunswick address?
Yes, it is.
And I'm showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit number 3. Does that appear to be the video clip you reviewed?
Yes, it is.
You want to move the admission of State's Exhibit number 3?
Number 3 will be admitted.
And publish it?
You can show the jury the video.
Right now, the video is playing, but there's no sound. Why is that?
What's that?
The video is playing, but there's no sound. Can you explain why that would happen?
No, when I reviewed it, it had an audible.
Okay. I think it's going to start after about 30 seconds.
It should, yes.
Mr. Jordan, I'm tempted to play off you, Jordan, as you're retired. So, Mr. Jordan, can you make sure that microphone's in front of your mouth when you're speaking and pick your voice up there?
Okay.
Need to move it, you sure can.
You seem to be having a bit of a malfunction as far as the sound's concerned, right?
Mr. Jordan, it appeared that you opened the door, then stepped back out of the apartment. Is that basically what you did?
Yes,
Why did you do that?
I was waiting for backup to arrive before I went in to check the residence.
And the person we saw arriving, who was that?
Excuse me,
The person that we saw, or the other officer we saw arriving, who was that?
that was Officer Martinez.
So you and Officer Martinez then went into the apartment to look around.
Yes,
What did you find in the living room area when you went in?
it was the victim on the couch on the east wall. There was, when I went in, I observed no weapons around her.
So the fact that there were no weapons around her, what, if any, conclusion did you reach from that?
Somebody had shot her.
Okay. It wasn't a suicide.
No.
When you looked around other areas of the house, what were you looking for?
A child.
And how had you heard about a child being in the apartment?
Her husband advised that she just recently had a newborn baby.
So you looked in the bathroom, you looked in the bedroom, you found a baby's crib,
Yes,
and it was empty.
yes, sir.
After you found that the child was missing, other officers came
Yes, I did.
and a big investigation started.
Yes.
If I could have 1 moment. Sure. That's all I have, thank you.
Mr. Stark, Ross? Mr. Jordan, thank you very much, sir. You can step in, you're excused.
Thank you.
This time state called Sergeant Brad Elmore to the stand.
This one is your testimony about giving the case now hearing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did. Permission to inquire, Your Honor. Could you introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Brad Elmore. I'm a sergeant with the Wichita Police Department.
Are you assigned to a specific area of the Wichita Police Department?
Yes,
What area is that?
the felony assault section.
Do you assist in homicide investigations when called?
Yes,
As a sergeant, is it normal for you to do follow-up legwork for other detectives?
yes,
Keeping them in line?
yes, working with the detectives on follow-up.
I want to direct your attention to a homicide that occurred on November 17, 2016. Were you involved in that investigation?
Yes, sir.
As part of that investigation, what were you aware of, just generally at the scene?
I was aware that there was a female that was located in an apartment at the scene, and that she was deceased from a gunshot wound, and that she had a small newborn child that was unaccounted for. We were trying to locate the baby.
During the course of the investigation, was a decision made to try and get biological material to confirm the identity of the child if she was ever located?
Yes,
Were you directed to go to any location to collect that type of material?
yes.
Where did you go?
Wesley Medical Center.
And what were you collecting?
2 vials of blood that were taken from the baby at the time of the birth of the child by the hospital.
Now, did anyone give you permission to collect that blood?
Yes.
Do you remember who gave you that permission?
It was the father of the baby, Manuel Antonio Gonzalez.
And you collected those 2 vials of blood?
Yes.
Who did you receive them from?
An employee of Wesley named Joey Dean.
Now, once you've taken possession of blood vials, what's the protocol of the Wichita Police Department? What do you do next?
Well, in this case, I kept custody of them. I checked them into our property evidence section, and then immediately took them over to the Forensic Science Center so that they could be tested.
Did you have any contact with any forensics investigator at the Regional Forensic Science Center?
Yes, I did.
And who was that?
Sarah Gehring.
So everything that you collected in regarding to the biological material of the infant was given to Sarah Gehring through the Regional Forensic Science Center?
Yes.
If I could just have a moment. Judge, actually, I don't believe I have any further questions based on that. That's fine.
Sir, no more, thank you, sir. You can sit down, you're excused.
The solemnly swear the testimony about the given case now hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Please tell the jury your name.
My name is Catherine Rowe.
How are you employed?
I am currently in training to be a late and front examiner with the Wichita Police Department, but prior to that, I was a crime scene investigator with the Wichita Police Department.
And were you working as a crime scene investigator in November of 2016?
I was.
Specifically, I want to draw your attention to November 17th of 2016. I believe it's marked as a Thursday in your report. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm referring to a report that it looks as though you generated. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what was it you were asked to do and that caused you to write this fairly lengthy report?
I was dispatched to a crime scene related to a homicide.
When you say dispatched, what does that mean?
We usually get called over the radio to respond to specific scenes. I actually think I misspoke in this instance, and I was notified by my crime scene supervisor to respond to this specific scene.
The law enforcement, police department was dispatched out by 911, but your sergeant called you and told you to come down.
That's correct.
Remember what time it was that you got to this scene?
I don't recall offhand, but if I may refer to the report.
If it would help refresh your recollection, please do.
According to my report, I arrived on scene at 18:17 hours, which would be 6:17 p.m.
And just so again we're clear, what is the scene specifically? What's the address?
The address was 215 North Brunswick, apartment number 1.
Just north and a little bit west of Ridge and Maple, or a little bit south of Ridge and Central. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
In Sedgwick County, Kansas?
Yes.
And when you arrive on scene, would it be fair to say other police officers had already been there?
Yes, that's correct.
Others were actually, some supervisors and some other officers, were they actually on scene still?
Yes, they were.
Did you get a little bit of information from them about what it is you were going to be asked to do?
Yes, I was briefed by the responding officers that were still on scene.
And the briefing you received, generally speaking, what were you told had happened, and how did that affect what you went about doing later during the course of your duties?
I was advised that the calling party arrived at the apartment, noticed that the front door to the apartment was ajar. When he entered the apartment, he noticed the female that resided in the apartment sitting on the couch, unresponsive, with a gunshot wound to her head.
And the calling party, was that an individual identified as Manuel Gonzalez, the boyfriend or husband of the victim?
Yes, that's what I was told.
Was there anything with respect to a child?
Yes, he had also informed police that a 10-day-old child by the name of Sophia was also missing from the apartment.
So you get there, you get this briefing from the sergeants and brass on scene. What's the next step for you?
The next step as a crime scene investigator is to document the scene as I arrived on scene. So I begin by taking overall photographs starting from the exterior of the apartment, working my way into the apartment, taking overall photographs of all your rooms of the apartment, and then we'll start taking close-up photos of different pieces of evidence or items that might be important.
The overall photos, if I understand it correctly, you take these to get an overall picture and then essentially work your way into the scene, fair?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you a series of photographs I had marked as states 4 through 21. Ask if you recognize these photos. In fact, we were showing them earlier today.
I was.
Do you recognize these as photos you took at the apartment number 1 on North Brunswick?
I do.
I move to public, move first of all to admit states 4 through 21 inclusive. We'll show the council over.
4 through 21 inclusive will be admitted.
And I'll ask.
You can show the jury.
Here we go. We'll start with what's been marked as State's Exhibit 4. You recognize that image?
Yes.
What is that a picture of?
This is a picture of the building identified as 215 North Brunswick. This is a shot facing the west, leading up to the apartment that's identified as number 1.
So you're standing just west of this freestanding brick building, taking a photo to the west, is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm going to step up here. There looks to be a landing or a step up onto another piece of concrete, is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's a door immediately to the side with a little exterior light on the outside. You see that?
That's correct.
If I turn then and look to the north, am I looking at apartment, the apartment we're describing correctly?
Yes, you'd be looking at apartment number 1.
Next photo, number 5. Is that the door, in fact?
Yes.
Leading
This is the front door to apartment number 1.
Okay. Next photo, number 6.
This is the living room of apartment number 1 immediately after you enter through that front door.
Obviously, the body of Laura Barca is present in this photo to the, what would be the east wall, is that correct?
That's correct.
Photo 7.
This is a photograph of the living room facing the south, and you can see the front door in this photo.
So, facing the south, you know, every apartment looks a little bit different, every home in terms of how neat they keep their apartment. But did you make a note, in fact, in your report as to the what looked to you to be the lack of any sort of physical disturbance?
Yes, upon entering this crime scene, I did note that there appeared to be no physical disturbance in terms of like things thrown off the couch, items cluttering the floor, which seemed very interesting to me.
You've been a crime scene investigator for a period of time,
About 2.5 years.
and you work in Wichita. I assume you've been to a few homicide scenes.
Yes, I have.
It's unusual to find a homicide scene where there's a struggle, where there's personal property spread around an apartment or a home.
No, that's very common.
This struck you as unusual.
It did.
While we're on the subject of what wasn't there, or what, well, while we're on the subject, did you also make note in your report of some items that were still in the home that were noteworthy?
Yes, I also found it a bit odd that the victim's purse, her keys, several of her prescription medications, there was some money still lying around, which in most instances, if this were another type of crime or robbery or such, those items are normally taken. So it was very odd to still see them located within the residence.
We're going to get to all the photos that you took of the residence, but did you see any sign someone had gone room to room and maybe rifled through drawers and turned things upside down, trying to get jewelry and that kind of a thing?
No, I did not.
Next photo, states 8.
This is a photograph from the hallway into the northwest bedroom.
So from that, you walk in the front door, you're right there in the living room where Miss Abarca was killed. To your left, then back to the west is a hallway,
That's correct.
and this is looking into what would you call it, a master bedroom?
This was, out of the 2 bedrooms that were in the residence, this was the larger of the 2 bedrooms, so you could call it the master bedroom.
Okay. Next photo, states 9.
This is a crib that was located in the northwest bedroom along the south wall.
Did it appear that the crib itself that had been jostled or rifled through, gone through, anything like that?
No,
Was there a baby in the crib?
no, there was not.
Next photo.
This is a photograph of the bed located within the northwest bedroom.
Next photo.
This is a photograph of a nightstand that was located in the southwest corner of the bedroom.
Shows, I guess I'd call that like a sippy cup or a bottle of some kind, maybe? The red lid?
Yes, that appears to be a cup provided by the hospital.
Okay. I get you. Stuffed bear in the top center part of the photo, all in close proximity to the crib. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, next photo.
This is a photograph of the items that were contained within the crib.
Looks like maybe some bedding, potentially hard to tell if it's clothing or a blanket, and then a sleeping, it's been a few years since I had my kids. I forget what they call those, a little blanket where the kids are kept within. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Next photo. What do we have here?
This is a photograph of a closet located along the east wall in the northwest bedroom, which appears to contain a holder, a hanging holder, if you will, of baby clothes.
So this, well, let's go on to the next one. It's, there we go, 14. Go ahead.
This is a close-up photograph of that closet.
So this shows, again, bedding, baby material, clothing, everything you'd need for a newborn.
That's correct.
Go back one photo if we would, please. Off to the left of that closet, we even see a celebratory balloon of some kind. Is that correct?
Yes, it appears to be a balloon attached to a gift bag.
Gift bag looks to be sort of off green there at the bottom of the, next to that dresser.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, moving forward. Back to the living room. Again, is this now a photo looking from that hallway back into the living room where Miss Abarca was found?
Yes, that's correct.
Again, no sign of disturbance other than the obvious signs of injury, violence to Miss Abarca.
Yes.
On the left hand, 1 second. Back in the corner, looked to be in this next photo here, I believe this is 16, we've got like an end table, a glass end table between the two sections of the couch. What are we seeing there?
This is a side table located to the south of where the victim was. And on top of it is several pieces of mail or indicia for the victim.
And even some sort of a baby announcement or baby card at the top of the photo, is that correct?
Yes.
Next photo. I believe this is 17. It looks like now you've taken that photo directly on the floor next to that end table that we saw in the previous photograph.
That's correct.
What are we seeing?
In this photograph, I was getting a picture of the cartridge casing that was located on the floor underneath that table.
May not be obvious. We've got what I think most of us recognize as a Apple charger cord in the foreground, and next to that looks like maybe even a plastic lid to a cup. Using those as reference points, if you need to stand up and point to the jury, please. Where's this cartridge casing?
The cartridge casing is located directly above this charging cord and is right here in this photograph.
For the record, you've indicated it would be next to the, looks like the leg of the end table, is that correct?
That would be correct.
And when you say cartridge casing, not everyone knows what that means. What is a cartridge casing?
A cartridge casing is what is ejected out of the firearm after the projectile has been fired through the firearm.
So somebody shoots a semi-automatic weapon, pistol for instance, bullet is shot through the barrel, the casing, the cartridge casing is the brass. Sometimes people might call it a shell. It's the brass that is expended or shot or tossed out to the side of the handgun. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And that's laying there on the ground immediately to Ms. Abarca's left or to the south of where she's seated, on the couch.
Yes.
You familiar with handguns in your training experience?
Yes.
Is there commonly is there a direction that handguns will throw a shell after a gun's been shot?
They are commonly ejected to the right.
So if Ms. Abarca is seated on the couch and the person shooting her is standing above her, you would expect the shell that is expelled from the handgun to toss to the right or to the south. Accurate?
Correct.
Where you found it.
That's correct.
Next photo. Is that a close-up of the shell casing, cartridge casing rather, that you just referenced?
It is.
Next photo. I believe this is 19. What's that?
This is a picture depicting the head stamp of that cartridge casing.
What's a head stamp? What's that mean?
The head stamp is what manufacturers put on the end of the cartridge casing as an identifying characteristic for their projectiles that they put on the market.
So if I look at it, I can tell if it's a Federal or a whatever, whoever made it.
That's correct.
What's this one?
This one is has S and B 40 SMW.
The 40, does that have any meaning to you as you looked at it?
That's usually the caliber of the firearm.
So by looking at it, just picking, and by the way, maybe I didn't say this, is this the shell casing you saw and that we saw in the two previous photographs?
It is.
Okay, so now this is a picture of you collecting it as an item of evidence?
Yes.
This, by the way, the red dot in the middle, what is that? Not dot necessarily, but the red, is that if I say primer, does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, that's the primer mark is that center indentation area of that cartridge casing. The red around it, I don't know if that was a stain that was placed there by the manufacturer. I don't see that very often on cartridge casings.
Whatever the source of the color, the indentation at least indicates that it's another indication that it's a fired cartridge casing.
That's right.
So it looks to be a 40 caliber. You collect this as evidence in case you later have a gun to compare it to.
That's correct.
Next photo. What do we have here? This appears to be states 20.
This is a photograph of the victim's right arm. left arm.
Yeah, a little hard to tell from looking over your shoulder there. Left arm. We'll see another one here just momentarily of her right arm. Why did you take these photos?
I was taking these photos to show the blood that was located on her arms, as well as to show that there was no defensive marks on her arms.
Talk first of all about the blood on her arms, so I can describe this for the record. It appears as though she's got a shirt on or a blouse on where the sleeves either go down to the elbows or were pushed up to the elbows. Fair statement?
Yes,
So then her forearms and hands are both exposed, no clothing on.
that's correct.
And we see what appears to be splotches of some kind on her forearms, even extending down to her, past her knuckles onto her left hand. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
What are those splotches?
That's blood spatter that, what it says to me is that her arms were likely in that position at the time the shooting or the incident occurred.
If there was blood on the back of her arms, it might indicate she'd come up in some defensive position. Fair statement?
That's possible, yes.
Did you see any blood on the backs of her arms?
No, I did not.
It was all on the forearms, top of her forearms.
Yes,
Next photo. Again, this would be her, the number 21. What are we looking at here?
this would be her right arm.
Same thing, a little less pronounced, a little harder to see, but did you see as you stood there what you took to be splotches of blood on the top of her right forearm and hand?
Yes, I did.
Draw the same conclusion as you did about the left?
Yes.
You also used a term a moment ago, defensive injuries, and you didn't see any signs of that. What do you mean?
We didn't see any bruising to her arms or hands as if someone was struggling with her, holding her down. We didn't see any cuts as if someone had struggled with a knife or a sharp implement, which was also very odd to us.
No indication someone had punched her or struck her with a gun before shooting her or scratched, anything like that?
No.
Council, approach her just a moment, please.
Yes, sir.
Council tell me that they think this witness might take a few more minutes. It's approaching 5. Does anybody have any problem with going a little longer than I said we would? All right, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you. I'm going to show you what I've marked as case 19A. Recognize this.
I do.
What is that?
This is a sealed envelope of the cartridge casing that I collected on scene.
So we had a photo a moment ago showing you with gloved hands putting a cartridge case in with 40, what appeared to be a 40 caliber. It was SMB.
SMB 40 S&W.
Okay. Into this same vanilla envelope.
Not exactly. It was placed in a coin envelope, which was then placed in this envelope.
There's other markings on the exterior indicating this had been subsequently delivered to the Forensic Science Center, where a ballistic expert later compared it to 2 other options. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what it appears.
Move for admission to states 19A.
Mr. Clark? Document will be admitted.
Just to wrap this up, you looked for, you took photos all throughout the house, obviously you saw all the signs of baby, preparations for the baby clothes, crib, etc., but never found the baby.
That's correct.
Never saw any sign that there had been a struggle over the baby, meaning, blood or something in the room with the crib, nothing like that.
No.
You look for other, let's see here, Found an ID for Guadalupe Noguera del Rio. You don't know who that was, do you, by the way?
No.
So testimony has already been, that's the victim Laura's mother, her own mother. You wouldn't know that, would you?
No.
Among the many other things you did you dust for prints on the exterior door, the doorknob that would have been used to get into the residence?
Yes, we did.
Very briefly, well, did you find it?
No, my results were negative.
Meaning, I won't go through everything you tried to do here as the hour's coming to an end, but did you test it trying to find if there were latent fingerprints that you could lift that could be compared later?
Yes, that was the idea.
When you say it was negative, does that mean there were no fingerprints, that there was nothing of comparative value? What does that mean?
When I mean negative, it usually means that there was nothing for comparative value that was found. I don't recall in this instance whether we found any ridge detail or we didn't find, or we found absolutely nothing. But when I mean negative is that we didn't have any sort of comparative ridge detail that would be able to be compared to anything.
Worked as a CSI for a couple of years even before this day. Is it unusual to not find fingerprints on things like doorknobs or tabletops, things that you know people touch? Is that unusual?
No. It's very common that we don't lift prints from doorknobs and such based on how fragile fingerprints can be, and the movement it takes to turn a doorknob also leads to a lot of distortion in the fingerprints, which leads to non-comparable fingerprints.
People turn knobs and smudge them all the time.
That's correct.
Last thing I was going to ask had to do with the door itself. Did you check to see if it was capable of being locked? And here's what I'm getting at. Did you see any sign, if I use the term forced entry, was there any sign that someone had forced their way into this residence?
No, there was not.
What would you see if you found evidence of forced entry?
Usually on scenes that we see forced entry to doors, they're likely kicked in or shouldered in, so there's damage to that door jamb, or pry marks to the door when someone used like a prying tool to disengage locks. In this instance, we did not see any of that.
So the door itself was capable of being locked. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is it one that had like just a turn from the inside? If I turned it and I pulled the door shut, could I lock it behind myself?
No, you needed an actual key to lock a deadbolt, and that was the only locking mechanism on the door.
So unless you've got the keys, you can't lock the door.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Smart, Ross?
Mayor.
Mr. Roy, thank you very much. You can step in and you're excused. We will take our evening recess at this time and ask the jury to please remember the admonition you're under, especially when you're in that overnight. Don't discuss the case among yourselves, or let anybody discuss it with you. We know there's media coverage. Please make every effort to not see or become aware of any media coverage of this case. If you do have to start to see, hear, or read something concerning this case, as soon as you realize what it is, stop paying attention to that source and report that to Garrett at your earliest convenience. Do no independent fact-finding or research of any type concerning any issue you've heard about in this case. That will be on the same schedule tomorrow. We do have some matters in the morning. If you convene your jury